I'm Molly Bales. I'm one of the co-founders of Adapt Intelligence, and I am also a real estate tech guru. I am guest hosting this week at Cornet, and I'm here with Chuck Tanowitz, who is, among other things, one of the co-founders of Boston Built Tech. Thanks for coming, Chuck.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear from your perspective, and obviously Adapt is one of the members of Boston Built Tech, as is Crowd Comfort, but when you had this thought of kind of starting this, I guess, trade association, tell me about your thought process and what you saw and why you thought that needed to be in existence.
It was really about convening something that I was watching emerge, right? I've been in the technology industry for a while. I watched something similar happen in enterprise tech, where there was this emergence of a number of companies that were getting together, and they needed to come together and coordinate in some way. The founders needed to sit down and talk and look around and go, oh, we're actually all working toward the same goal. How do we work together? And I was looking at real estate tech, seeing it kind of come up as a general rule, and then built tech in particular, and there was nothing that was bringing all that together. So it was really very simple. How do we get everybody around a table, having a conversation, learning what other people are doing, so that we can then figure out, okay, how do we come together on projects? How do we bring in the right people? How do we work together on projects like this? How do we know what everybody else is doing in the industry? How do we recruit to Boston for the people that we need? How do we build, how do we work with investors and customers, and which customers are yours and which customers are mine, and where are you selling into an organization versus this group over here, and all those issues that each company deals with, and they think that they're on their own, but they're not.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we talk about kind of real estate tech has sort of come into its own very recently. What do you think is going on there? Why do you think real estate tech has exploded in such a way?
I've seen a number of presentations about this recently. A lot of it has to do, obviously, with the money flowing in, the VC money flowing in, the building that's happening, and the opportunity that's there.
Yeah.
And I believe that part of the reason why Boston's so interesting is the big data underpinning.
Yes.
Boston has a tremendous amount of big data talent, and all it needs is more information. The more sensors you can provide, the more information you can give it. Now you actually have something. What happens with that? Now you have this cross-talent ability. That's happening here.
Right.
Some other cities are other reasons, but at least for here, I think that's one of the big drivers. Is since we have that tech talent, the UI UX talent, we have the marketing talent, we've got the big data talent, people that can crunch those numbers. To me, that's what makes this place interesting. As far as on a macro level, it's a lot of it has to do with just it's the right time.
Yeah.
And sometimes technology just has to be the right time. The price has to come down far enough. Cloud computing is now in the mainstream. You have places that you don't need to put in big servers to do this anymore. You have the ability to put in sensors that are relatively inexpensive. You have all those things starting to happen. The mobile devices becoming really prolific. Being able to now look at a mobile device and having that front end to your property. All of that. And then the rebuilding that is going on with the changes that are happening around co-working and other kinds of things, of the increased density, and what does a community mean, and how do you bring community together. That's all macro level issues that have kind of filtered down into technology.
Right. What do you think the impact, and I know a lot of people talk about this, but of course, the Boston Built Tech, we meet in a co-working space.
Right.
I mean, what do you think is the impact overall of co-working on, technically non-co-working spaces?
A lot of it's going to have to do with, number one is density, right? The density increase is actually pretty substantial there. And an area that we work in is in the suburbs. Without the transportation systems in place, we're seeing a lot of issues around that, of how do you create the right amount of parking without creating massive parking lots to handle the increase in density. So there's some very real problems there.
Yeah.
Then there's also this issue of community. People want to be in a community. And I think what had happened over the last 15 years, people saying you can work from home, you can be alone. People didn't want to. Right? They kind of came together in their own way. And then there's this flexibility within the offices themselves, where an old school company will say you need to be in the office and sit here for 8 hours a day. Nobody really wants to do that especially the younger generation don't want to do that. They want to have flexibility to say, I want to come, I want to go, I want to work where I want to work. So how do we create those pods for them to be? So if you kind of look at it, you have this co-working space now that's propping up, says we're going to give you a community. Companies have to respond to that.
Yes.
Right? They have to create their own community. They have to create their own amenities. And if not them, then the property owners need to do it. Because otherwise people won't come to that location. The location has to be inviting, has to be a place you want to go, not just a place that exists.
Right.
I just spoke to a company today that moved into the area that I'm working with, N Squared, and the reason they chose there was it was central for them. They had a lot of people who lived outside of the city, easy commute, but more importantly, they could walk to places. It was a place that had life to it, and they put in a bar in the middle of their office.
Yeah.
Right? They wanted to have that comfortable, fun feeling. They didn't just want to be sitting in a cubicle 8 hours a day, right? So you had to start thinking through what is the environment you're working in. It looks like a co-working place. You walk in and there are open desks and fun places to be, and it looks like co-working.
Yeah.
It's just this one company.
Right.
It's that community.
Yeah. What do you think about, you've heard the term gig economy, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and it was funny, we were just discussing, before this, we were saying, which of your titles should I use to address you? Because you're an example of the gig economy. I mean, what role do you think that has to play in kind of the changes we're seeing today?
People, again, it comes back to where people want to work.
Right.
And what, when I'm working on whatever project, I go into certain offices and work there, but sometimes I'm working remotely. Sometimes I work remotely by choice. Sometimes I work remotely because I have to. I have writing to do this afternoon. I'm just going to pick a place. The library's down the street. Might just pop in there and do some writing, or any place that has good coffee. That's kind of the choices you're making at that on the fly. But people still want to have that home base. And where does that home base come to? It grounds you.
Right.
If people might build it in their living room. They might build it in a co-working location, but they want to have some place that they know that's where I'm going to go.
Right.
I still think that sticks around. I don't think that's going anywhere.
Yeah.
That's your community.
Right. I want to circle back to Boston Built Tech, because that is kind of why we're here today and how we met each other.
Right.
We talked about kind of the origin of that idea. What are your thoughts at this point about where do you want to see Boston Built Tech go?
I'd like to see it do two things. One is to continue to build the community here, right? And how do we make sure that everybody knows what everybody else is doing, and I'd like to see business deals start to come out of that. How do we go into a property together and offer something bigger?
Right.
How do we partner in an official kind of way? How do we share information and share data? How do we recruit together? How do we market together? So I want to see that happen. But I also want to see similar organizations popping up in other cities. Real estate still remains a very local kind of thing. There's still local zoning laws. There's still local issues. There's local talent. And you'll see repetitive technologies pop up in local environments to handle that. Will there be a straight breakout that makes it national? I don't know. Some are emerging. WeWork's an example of somebody that can emerge on that national, international level, but you still have your local co-working and regional co-working in every city. So that's just one side of that. Then there's the technology itself. Where does that develop? Where does that go? I don't know, but I do think at least right now, New York has its own real estate tech market happening. San Francisco, Chicago, LA, they're all emerging. How do we start convening people in those locations as well to try to help them grow too? Yeah,
great. Well, that's awesome. Do you want to tell people where they can find us and join us?
We have a website, bostonbuilt.tech is the website. We are planning on an event that is tentatively scheduled for November 15th, but I haven't put out the Eventbrite just yet, but that will be going out, where we want people to come together and see what we're working on, hear from the companies that we're working with. And if there are companies out there that want to get in on the conversation, please join us. We're meeting once a month in person and sometimes by phone as well, so we invite people to come and meet any which way.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.